Welcome to NFT Sundays, a weekly conversation around art and technology, brought to you by DMINTI and the Museum of Crypto Art. Hello, and welcome back to NFT Sundays with our lovely guest, Judy Mam, founder of DADA.art.
Hi, Colborn. It's so good to see you.
It's so wonderful to see you as always. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's great. I love this casualness. I love casual Sundays. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Casual Sundays are the best. The first thing I ask people always is just tell me whatever you would like to share about yourself, and perhaps what brought you to the NFT space.
Well, I am currently in Mexico City, so I think that's a good way to start because that's where I'm from. I am a writer, and as you said, I'm the co-founder of DADA.art, which is kind of like a really interesting. How I ended up there is super cool. I mean, it's cool because I never expected to end having like an internet platform. I'm a person of words, and Dada is, as you know, a place where people make art together. So I guess that's it's been kind of a long journey to get to Dada, and but it's the greatest thing I've ever been involved with. So I'm very proud of it.
So for everybody that doesn't know, will you just explain the basics of Dada?
Yeah, Dada is a visual conversation platform, we call it. We started it in like 2014. And basically, it's a place where we provide like a very basic drawing tool. So you make a drawing with our drawing tool, and then you post it, and somebody from anywhere in the world can reply to you with another drawing. And what that does is it creates these amazing spontaneous visual conversations that are it's just really like a dialogue. It's not in real time, but you always get like this surprise, like maybe you get a notification that says somebody replied to your drawing, and you open this email and you see that somebody is actually speaking to you through art. And it's a very, very special place.
Tell me, where did this idea come from?
Well, Beatriz, whom you know, my partner and the founder of Dada, who is an artist. And I actually met her because I used to work in advertising. I was a creative director in advertising. And she had an animation studio, this wonderful production studio called Dancing Diablo. And I was her client, and they did wonderful stuff. And years later, I think I had already left the agency world, and she came to me and said, "I have this idea for a startup." At the time, we were a startup, and at the beginning, we really wanted to solve this problem of how to source talent in a way that could be that we wanted to see who was the artist behind the art. Because when you're in this business, you see a lot of portfolios and stuff like that, but you don't really know who the person is. And so that was a very, 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 very start of it. But very early on, Bea, who is an artist, said, "You know what, this is not going to work because there's already a bunch of portfolio sites, and what we need to do is to give artists what they need and what they know how to do best, which is the tools to express themselves through drawing." And she always said something that fascinated me, which was that as an artist, she felt really like oppressed by the tyranny of the word, because everything we do is very verbal. Our communications tend to be mostly verbal, and she's like, "I am so much more eloquent when I draw." And so I was kind of, fascinated by this idea. We felt, what better way to create community than by actually having people draw? And when people draw, it's a very different dynamic than when you give a like, or you put a little comment, or even you share an emoji, because it takes time and it takes concentration, and it's kind of very freeing. So the texture of the relationships is very, very different. At the time, it seemed to be kind of like a social network, but really it's not a social network. It really is a community.
And I mean, I think it really lives up to its name, you know, of like this like free form thing that you do not know, always full of surprises. And I'm sure that's what makes people want to come back and to share, because it feels just like real, authentic, personal, and each time very different.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like we needed to come up with a name for this. And me being the writer, of course, I was tasked with like finding a name for this platform.
Yeah.
And I swear, I think I went through 250 names, like with all kinds of references, like Greek mythology and other artists
Sure.
and genres. And I mean, I was driving myself insane. And one day, Bea comes to me and says, "What about Dada?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna kill you." No,
Right.
but I thought Dada is so great.
Yeah.
It's such a perfect, and once we started really looking into it, I mean, first of all, it's super easy to remember, but also we really felt that it was kind of a continuation of the values of the Dadaist movement of
Right.
absolute freedom,
Yep.
experimentation, like changing the boundaries of what's considered to be art, because breaking all that those strictures, and giving people a place to really express themselves. As you say, Dada is not a marketplace, is not a gallery. It's really kind of like a giant canvas where people make art together, and that freedom is really like creates this very specific kind of art, the freedom and the tool that we have.
I will just say, like, from talking to so many people, it comes up time and time again. If you give a creative person, if you give an artist an open source toolkit and don't value it in a marketplace, they will create priceless things again and again. You know, there is this need to just express ourselves, and we're each trying to do so through like limited faculties such as words. But that's what is just like so interesting again and again, is just giving people tools to use for free, to put them in different situations to be able to communicate and express.
Yeah, and Dada is really interesting. In first, we always knew it has to be free. Second, anyone can draw, anyone can come. We do not curate. We do not have any sort of like, anyone can come in, and it doesn't matter. Like, we have commercial artists, we have professional artists, we have extraordinarily talented people who are artists but who have never had professional training or academic training, and everything in between. And that also is gorgeous because there's everything,
Right.
and it is true also that obviously we created Dada. Originally, we wanted it to be a profitable thing. It's not an NGO. It's not, we always felt art is art is valuable, and this art that is created without the purpose of being valuable monetarily, it's created with absolute freedom, is also valuable. But so how do we monetize it? And it took us, we tried all kinds of different things until like around 2017 we discovered blockchain. But what is interesting, and we can talk about this later, what is interesting is that we knew whatever the monetization structure was, it could not be integrated into the platform itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because the minute that we put like a little shop now or a little, here's your card, it would completely destroy everything. It would destroy the intent, like the way the art is made. It would probably even destroy the fiber of the community when people start, because the moment you put that, then you have to see, well, who sold more, on what sells best, and that would completely destroy the fabric, I think, of the community and the essence of the platform. So we always knew that, even before we discovered that, through what are now called NFTs, but at the time was called rare art or blockchain art or whatever, that we had to preserve that freedom and this purity of giving people a place to make art. And it's a place where people not only make art with other people or by themselves, but also it's a place where they feel safe. It's a place where you can feel very safe. There's really no trolling or bullying. We don't censor stuff. It's just, I always say that when people come to Dada and they see what's going on, there's always going to be someone who does like a little doodle, or or maybe someone who's testing boundaries. But we created a system in which in order for your art to be seen, or for you to actually respond to people, you had to make a little bit of an effort. So Dada is also kind of like a gamified platform, and that has helped us really keep people, when they come in, they see the stuff other people make, and I think it's like they instinctively understand that they're in a place of safety and respect and like great vibes. And so it takes a lot to try to kind of like deface that or futz with that, so it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm.
Well, I will echo great vibes. Certainly, the best people that I've ever met come from Dada. The most incredible artists as well. It's just super, super special. And I don't know how much we want to interrogate this, but I'm hyper interested, of course, in how capital markets begin to take away that magic, take away that luster, how things like likes and follower counts and ranking systems begin to put people against each other. I read something very recently, like about how if we, continue to just import these systems into the metaverse worlds, then undoubtedly we will end up with just the same people, the same thing where people are judged on reputation or followers. And it's so cemented. And I think we're all so tired of that, like, rigidity of these networks, that we were looking for something more fluid. So I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
What I love about you, Colborn, is that I think we're so aligned that it's almost uncanny, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, we instinctively felt it. I was watching the Andy Warhol Diaries yesterday, and it echoed what we all. There's a part where one of the artists is saying, they were all kind of like, Warhol was collaborating with Basquiat, and there was a factory, and there was a lot of incredible, stuff going on with artists, and it was a lot of fun, and it was the 80s, and everyone was on coke, and it was fun. But then he says the real money started coming in, and like serious money started coming in, and the fun was gone. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And so I think that in our case, we realized that, for instance, one thing that happened, when you're in startup school and they're teaching you how to grow your platform, and you have to like get a lot of people and all the incentives that are designed, and they're tried and true. You don't have to invent anything new when like they tell you exactly what to do to grow a community, and to have thousands of users, but all the incentives are incentives of hierarchical competition, right? So leaderboards, what you mentioned, like numbers of likes, this kind of status growing kind of thing. And we noticed that we had a leaderboard in Dada at the very beginning, because we were still building the platform. And one of our artists, I believe, and the artists were communicating in Facebook. They were drawing on Dada, but they were communicating on Facebook, and they let us know that the leaderboard was creating friction. Like, the friction was never inside of Dada, because you have a little chat, but when people are drawing, it's a different place. And the minute they told us the leaderboard is kind of starting to create a little bit of nothing like super serious, but competition and clashes, we said, fuck the leaderboard. We took it out, and that was the end of the story. Like, I mean, everything that we did, that we learned through we don't call them users, we learned through the artist. We designed with very intentional, non-competitive, collaborative frameworks. So yes, if you emphasize how many people like you or who likes you or all these kinds of things. That's what you get. The same thing happens, like, and I have to say, with our own NFT market. At the very beginning, when we discovered blockchain, both Bea and I could see the possibilities of this beyond markets. We could see, I mean, what was exciting to me was the market was the least of it. What was exciting to me was, like the royalties, which we can talk about. We encoded into
We
smart
should.
contracts for the first time in 2017. The fact that artists could now have more of a sustainable opportunity because in secondary markets they could get royalties. Not only that, but the excitement of the peer-to-peer relationship between artists and collectors, the fact that you didn't have to be a super wealthy or rich or special or important person to collect art, and that by the same token you didn't have to be a super established artist that has gone through all this like gatekeeping in order to be an artist, all of that. And we could just see that it could create a completely alternative system, which we always had in mind, for artists not to have to be not only on the grind and the hustle and all of that, but also not competing against each other, not like having this like very few people at the top and a long tail of like very talented, very hardworking artists that no one ever cares about. So we really felt that it could be a more fair, that there could be a more fair system. And I was disappointed to see that as the space started growing, it just completely replicated what it was running away from. It completely replicated the hierarchical nature, the market, the free market structure, the speculation, the some other kind of, the same kind of gatekeeping. And I have nothing against curation, and I have nothing against a certain degree of gatekeeping, but I was like, wow, we have this opportunity to do something completely different. And I mean, as you can see today, it's like the art market on steroids, right?
I think a lot of us are certainly in mourning. I think a lot of us are in mourning that like the vision, the values, everything that the we fell short. We certainly fell short, but there was, of course, something that I want you to rewind and own and just let people know about, what you did with artist secondary royalties.
Yeah. Well, Bea went to the Ethereal Summit in 2017. She came back and said, "This is what we're doing," and we're like, "Block what?"
Yeah.
But we started at the time. It was a small community, not even a community, a small number of people that we were like learning about, like the rare pepes, and then we like learned about the CryptoPunks. And basically, when we saw the CryptoPunks, those were, I think, our major influences. When we saw the CryptoPunks, we thought, wow, this is what we should do. However, we should do like this nice like collection of different works of art. Each work of art is by a different artist. This is not generative. It's not made by an algorithm. It's made by artists on our platform. But the structure would be also like different levels of scarcity, etc. So we reached out to John and Matt, who were incredibly, from Larva Labs, incredibly generous and incredibly wonderful. And basically they told us, we said, can we use your smart contract? And they said yes. And to that smart contract, we modified it, and we added royalties for artists. And so we had distributions at the time that the first sale was 70% went to the artist and 30% went to Dada. And on the secondary market, it was like the collector would get 60%, and then 30% would go to the artist and 10% to Dada, which,
Wow.
I mean, I think collectors would riot, right? I mean, but at the time there were no collectors, so there was no entitlement. And so that's we have always been focused on the artists, and our first our first tagline was "Power to the Artist," like at the very, very, very beginning. So yeah, that's what we did, and we don't know that anyone else did this before us. And that's what we did. Our first collection was the Creeps and Weirdos, and that's how it came out, with those distributions, like automatic. The artists get automatically their stuff, and if on secondary markets, they would get the royalties. And yeah, I think that
I
it's just amazing to me that having done that, later on, artists had to fight for royalties, as you know, like Sparrow and Matt Cain, and those
Yep.
people had to go to the platforms and say, "Hey, uh, that should have been like a feature of this thing," right? Mhm.
Well, thank God they won, because that was probably like the saving grace of the whole thing, right? I think that's what pulled a lot of people in. I think people have seen tremendous value accrued to them in these secondary sales, which is just, it's wonderful. It's great. It's empowering. I don't think there probably in human history has been a larger, like quicker wealth transfer of capital to artists. I guess that is something certainly to be a bit proud of.
Yes, very much so. Even though
Yes.
if you talk to Bea, she says not enough wealth transfer to
Not
artists.
undoubtedly, undoubtedly.
It's like
Well,
10%. What the hell is that? But also, we did the Creeps and Weirdos. We brought them out on October of 2017. And there were few collectors at the time, and mostly there were rare Pepe collectors. It was just starting to happen. So imagine that, just to give people a bit of like a frame of reference. We had 108. It's like 16,600. An edition of that, 108 different artworks with 5 levels of scarcity, and the commons at the time, which I think were like 250 of each or something like that, were $5 each. And at the time, like the most expensive ones, the extremely rares, which I think there were 15 of each or something like that, were maybe $150, and people it was unheard of. So I'm always I'm always admiring of the collectors that were there very, very early on, because I'm thinking these people, whether they were just playing around or they were speculating, or they could see something that was interesting. I think I admire people that say, well, I mean, I'm gonna investigate this, right?
how did you announce it? I mean, I remember 2017 well. I was eating crypto. I was certainly kicking around on Reddit boards. I would have been in New York. So yeah, what I mean, just like what an interesting time. I guess even
It
then, when the
was. I mean,
community is small, you still miss a bunch of things.
oh yeah, I mean, we announced it. I think we did it was a Halloween release, and we did that on purpose because we were part of an accelerator, and we needed to kind of like, this was kind of like our graduating project. It was a 6-month accelerator, and we actually went full blockchain during it, and they were rather appalled at the beginning. They were really scared because everybody was telling us about, oh, advertising business model, and we're like, we'll die before we do that. I mean, we both came from that world, and it's like over our dead body.
Right.
And there were like all these kind of like brands and stuff, and we're like, no, 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 no. So we were a tiny little startup. We did a Halloween party. We tried to announce it like, it was really not very that well known. I mean, it started kind of getting a little bit of traction, but also we saw, that's when, like, then the first Rare Art Fest happened. So we are now, we came out in October, and then the Rare Art Fest was in January of 18, and that I think was really where the community kind of like got together. In the meantime, we kept meeting people, and and all of these people who are still around and who have come to do really big stuff, like like the guys from Super Rare, which wasn't called Super Rare at the time. Or pretty much, I feel like we're like the grandmas of everyone, because everybody, pretty much, except for the CryptoPunks and the Rare Pepes, every other platform came after us.
After.
So yeah, so it was really a fantastic time, because everybody was trying to solve the same problem. It was really super new. It was hard to explain, but still hard to explain. But at least now people can see the actual result. But when you're just testing these assumptions, you're testing these hypotheses, no one really knew exactly if they could be actually sold, if there was going to be some interest, if we all knew the potential, and we all knew that it would come, but obviously not at the levels that we see today. But I always used to say that that time reminded me, and it still does, it was like a cross between the Renaissance and the Wild West. And the Renaissance was all the people who were building or creating art or building platforms for art, like who could see the potential of art as not only as a market, but as like innovation. And the Wild West were all these crypto bros that were like, you remember the ICOs, and like when Lambo,
Yeah.
and because it was so new that sometimes we would end up at these kind of weird cocktail parties or weird meetups of like of crazy crypto finance bros that had not heard of the CryptoPunks, had not heard of the Crypto Kitties. They had no idea, and I was like, it really felt like the Wild West. And then you would go to these meetups where you would meet John Crane from Super Rare, and not Super Rare at the time, or like I remember, like there was this mysterious guy who sat on our meetups, and I was like, he never talks and he's very weird. And it turned out to be, he felt like a spy, but no one was spying on anyone because everybody was collaborating. But he turned out to be Andy Alekin from Snark.art, and they were
Sure.
building their thing, and that's how we met all these fabulous people. It was lovely.
I mean, to me, and to this day, it still seems that like the center of Web3 and the builders and crypto and all of this, it happens in New York. I still feel that, especially just coming back from LA, where everybody seems like astronomically lost. But there is a special energy to that city and a dynamism to it that is so, I guess it attracts a lot of these types of people.
Also, yeah, I don't know. You're right. I mean, not that everybody was based in New York, but like, for instance, for the first Rare Art Fest, Joe Looney came from Virginia, and Jason Bailey came from Massachusetts or wherever. But I think there may be something about New York, the energy certainly, but also it's easy,
Right, sure.
You take the subway, you're there. It's like there's something about I don't know. It just so happened that some of the people who were like Larva Labs was here, we were here. Well, here I mean New York, and I think that it's really interesting also how, for instance, somebody writes a tweet, like in the case of Joe Looney, who basically, like, I asked him, how did you just Google us or what? He just like maybe said, like, who else is doing blockchain art right now? And he put everyone on a tweet that he was aware of, and he said that why don't we do a conference? And everybody said, let's do it. And I think this really, I swear, I think it happened at the beginning of December, and by January 18th, or not, January 13th, there was a festival. There was that kind of excitement. It was super exciting. Yeah.
There's so much I want to get into. Maybe we just like close the end of the Creeps and Weirdos story, and then we'll talk about your new project.
It's a really, it's a really interesting story. We have always experimented. After the Creeps, we did other collections, but the Creeps have a very particular story. They are ERC20s. But when the 721 came in, we did we kind of updated them, but as you know, you cannot really like alter the contracts. So there's like this very historical progression to the crypts, and we had to do a marketplace last year because only in blockchain can people come into a store that is closed and buy the stuff when the store is closed, which is what happened.
Right. Right,
Like the
of course.
marketplace was hidden. We had taken it out because we saw some of that speculation, and we wanted to continue experimenting, and we didn't, we felt we wanted to do other things. And then last year, which was the big boom of NFTs, we realized that people were transacting directly from our contracts. So we decided to reopen the Crypts and Weirdos marketplace, which we were going to do anyway. And they're out there, and they're wonderful.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's just nobody was prepared, right? Nobody was prepared for people to just investigate so much, to dig into it, to find and rediscover, and then all of your like rescue efforts and conservatorship and bringing the project back and creating, relaunching the marketplace. It's like a story that needs to be, I don't know, I'll make a documentary about it if I have to one of these days.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great story. It's a complicated story, but also I think that we made the decisions. That the easy decision, like people were saying, why don't you just burn like one of the collections? And we're like, we're not going to burn anything because this is our history, and we are honoring our history. So we made decisions always to preserve. There were always for preservation and for, of course, creating value both for our artists and for our collectors, and not so much for let's like sell like pancakes and then figure what. And no, there was a lot of thought into the decisions that we made for the marketplace that we have today.
Before we talk about your new projects, how about just like a couple minutes on the invisible economy?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like a good segue because I think that's the progression of Dada. Everything comes from the drawing platform. Then the Crypts and Weirdos came in, and because of what we saw becoming the speculative nature and this everybody bet like on the market like crazy. I was watching Bea's, she did a keynote at the Ethereum Summit in 2018. And even before then, the ideas of the invisible economy have always been part of our values. But we actually did a bunch of research about intrinsic motivations. As you know, like I explained at the beginning, Dada is based that the only thing that motivates you to be in Dada is your own desire to make art or to commune with other people or to express yourself. So there's it's not product, there's no salary, there's no price, there's no like rank or anything like that. And based on this research about behavioral economics that says that people actually are far more not only productive but creative and I don't know, satisfied when they work out of intrinsic motivations. We basically created an economic system that is based on that as opposed to market forces. And we are starting to put it into place. We have been working on, we wrote a paper called The Invisible Economy in 2019, and we are, moving in that direction. Now we have a much bigger community where we're not, we're kind of like, we're not like a corporate company anymore. We're really a community of people who contribute and participate out of their intrinsic motivations. But we are creating a system where the value that we create in general as a community is going to be given back to the community and not to like individual players. So for instance, After the ape storm, we decided that the royalties or whatever value, whatever comes in for anything that comes in from the sale of any of Dada's collections goes to the community. It doesn't go to and but it's not simple. There we have a very well thought out it's not distribution, but it's like the metrics of what people contribute, but it's not a tit for tat. It's not like, oh, I made a drawing so I get this. It's the value of the contribution over time, the value to the community over time. And it doesn't only involve artists, but it involves also the developers, the founders, like amazing people who have given us their knowledge and expertise, people like you who are part of our community and very supportive. So it's like an ecosystem, really. And of course, very different from what everyone else is doing. We feel that it could probably be used by other, not only for art but for other things. We're working hard on kind of like making it happen. So we're gonna have a DAO, we call it, but it's still separated. The DAO is going to govern like the decisions that have to do with the creation of value and the marketplace, and the invisible economy will continue working without those things. It's rather interesting.
How does it feel to be so cool? How does it feel to be so like
My
out on the
God.
cutting edge? It must be like simultaneous, like the edge of a roller coaster.
I have to give credit. I mean, I think it's like I have to give credit to Bea, because I think she really is. I don't say this lightly about anyone. I don't, but I think she really is a visionary. But
Totally.
it does feel really cool. I completely unexpected to be. I remember I was invited to speak at MIT, and I'm like, I'm the worst person at math. I'm the worst, and here I am. I mean, like the marvels never cease, so wonders never cease. So I'm very proud. It's on the one hand, I tend to joke that like why we are always so ahead of the times that like my mind is exploding and everybody else's mind is exploding. But at the same time, it's kind of the momentum. Like once I think that to be ahead of the times, you have to be ahead of the times way back. That you have that kernel that is always looking for better solutions or for.
Yeah. So now let's best for last. Tell us please about what you've been working on, the return to words, and your NFT novella.
Oh yeah. Well, I've always been a writer, and I wrote a novel a few years back, and for some miracle of life, which was very like some publishing house found me, and they loved something that I had written, and I sent them the novel, and which is in Spanish, and they decided to publish it. And so it's a normal publishing, although my publisher is also one of those like kind of like natural dada people, who even though he's like you're a dada person, your mind is a dada mind, and his mind is a dada mind too. And so he said, well, I want to publish you. We published the book in paper, and then Bea says, well, why don't you make it into an NFT? And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful idea. I don't know if my publisher is going to go into a what, but of course, him being so cool, Ismael from Ferragosto, the minute I said, let's do it into an NFT, let's create as an NFT, he said, absolutely. He didn't even blink. And it's coming out soon. It's going to come out in the platform, which is Sparrow is leading this amazing new place, which is both kind of like an NFT marketplace, but it's also like a publishing NFT thing where context is given to we realized that when we were creating all this stuff, what we needed to prove was that these things could be transacted. So everything was a marketplace. And these marketplaces, they don't really have room for the process of the artist or who is the artist or what. There's zero context, right? You just boom, it's like, you're just, which a part of it is kind of fun, but then there's a lot of context that is lacking. So the book is coming out in the platform, but we're really proud that we didn't want to do what we learned, what like researching if had there been books before as NFTs. There have been like PDFs that have a token attached, or they have been like stuff like that, like some sort of, and we really wanted to create a real book object, but that is still a book. So it has like this really cool animated cover by Mojarra, who is my homie from Mexico
Wonderful.
and
Yeah, wonderful
the
artist.
greatest.
Yeah.
And it has like we wanted to have like an experience that starts more like as an NFT and then so more like being a book. So the animated cover takes you to this really cool kind of interactive index with some animated art also by Mox, and then you go into the book and you read it digitally. Even like we had like the like this kind of like shadow, like the shadow that pages make when you're like
Mm,
flipping them.
yeah.
And so it's a really beautiful object. And but what is interesting about this, besides the fact that I'm very happy and proud that I think it's going to be the first NFT Mexican, the first Mexican book as an NFT, is that through this, my relationship with my publisher was like very standard. When we were doing the paper, I got a 5-page contract that told me that they were going to do like an Excel, like a spreadsheet, and then I'm going to get my money God knows when. And then, of course, the beauty of this thing is that in the smart contracts, we'll get everything. He'll get his thing, I'll get my thing, Mojarra will get his thing, which I think is still the same kind of revolution as it was for art. It should be for authors and for readers. I think it can even make books and literature kind of hot again. But what I realized is that because the NFT by its own nature, not the NFT in itself, but because of the nature of this peer-to-peer, our relationship became far more collaborative, although it was
Mm,
always very nice. And now we're actually kind of partnering. We're partnering to bring more literary NFTs married to art. So like I am curating the art for I mean, and we're both kind of like, maybe curating the literature. And so we're going to be bringing out more like, and the beautiful thing is it could be one short story, it could be one poem. It doesn't have to be all the same kind of like rigid strictures that we see in the art world. Well, the publishing world is the same or even worse. And the NFT, having books as collectible objects where you can interact with audio or with other kinds of or art or other formats, the digital innovation, I think is what should happen. And
I think
so
you I think you make a super point because once the money is on chain and automated, right? It gives the people more freedom to just like know the bounds of that instead of like worrying perhaps what somebody else is doing about the money or dividing it up, right? When that concern is just automated, people instantly, I think, become more collaborative and creative. Um, so
yeah. And
yeah,
it's not only that, yeah, it's more also there's something that opens your mind. You go, because the digital life allows you to bring animation, it allows you to bring music if you want, or whatever
right.
you want. It's not, I mean, not that there are books that have illustrations, certainly, but it's like I was joking that my contract for the paper book is like 17th century with like signatures, and it takes forever.
Right.
you know and this is, for instance, we were talking, we're going to come out with a second beautiful, it's a short story by a writer called Lara Ehrlich. And we talked to the publishing house that has the rights for that story. And it's a tiny, small publishing house. I think they're based on Berkeley, California. And they do beautiful, beautiful work, but they're struggling, right? Because they are independent. And as you know, the publishing world is almost collapsed. And so they have like in their page, they have like donations. And we're like, no. I'm like, art is not a charity case. Literature should not be a charity case. This stuff has value. And I think just as in art, in terms of giving voice to like also unexplored voices from writers that in the regular publishing world would, like artists, would not make it to an editor or to an agent. This is
Yeah.
same kind of revolution.
Tell everybody anything you must share in this final moment, and perhaps where they can find you, and then I'll send us home.
Yes, well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm Grand Enchilada, one word. The platform is actually launching with our book, which I'm very proud of. That's how they're going to make a splash. And come and draw on Dada and take a look at the creeps and weirdos and be kind.
And have fun.
And have fun, more importantly. Thank you so much,
Voilà. Thank you so much. It's been lovely. Colborn Bell, NFT Sundays, Judy Mam of DADA.art. Thank you, DMINTI, Museum of Crypto.
Breaking news.